But as I know myself being in Nepal until I have lived my changey life, came to Norway when I was 27-year-old or 28 years old. So I know there is a story around our upbringing in Nepal. And therefore today I am not here just as a professor of international environment and development studies, but as also a citizen of my native country Nepal, and with a very heavy heart. I also think that this presentation will give my creative interpretation, my story, to set a case what Suraj has already been presenting here. And I dedicate this presentation to those who died in a very young age in Nepal, and let them rest in peace. Why I say story? Because there has been saying that this universe is made up of a story, not atom. And when you look at the recent scientific literatures on, quantum social sciences, quantum psychology, that makes a lot of sense to me, because we, Suraj, me, and many Nepali here, we are connected to Nepal in a subtle entanglement, and we have our story to tell. This is the country, you see, a very big diversity when it comes to the natural, the ecological diversity as well as between two giant, a very complex system, as Maris said, Nepal, and there is a co-evolution of different culture, ethnic group, and so on. So telling my onto-epistemological storytelling that happens in also anthropology. And by the way, I'm not an anthropologist, but still, this story, this is the place where I was born in the eastern Nepal, and this is the ground reality where. And we, as a young people, when I grow up in this kind of reality, we have a simple aspirations, simple kind of worldview, conception, thought, cosmovision at that time. But when my father brought me for a higher education in the Tarai region, then so many context deficit kind of element were added, and also that also brought some of the materialistic and post-materialistic thinking on the youth like me. Like when I came down to the lowland of Nepal, then I was exposed to the Indian Bollywood movies, and then a lot of aspirations and so on. My ground reality was one that you can see, but when aspiration was high and high and high and so on. And that, how that has created a kind of a self-crisis on me, I have written those kind of things, so that we have to see the context responsibility of education also, which is lacking in Nepal. Okay, what happened really from my perspective when I say materialistic and post-materialistic kind of values? Look at the media kind of thing now, when during the marriage also, these new population are seeing a kind of, their smartphone and so on. And this is not a story of Nepal only. Everywhere there has been a Genji uprising in different countries like Madagascar and Tanzania and many other countries, and this is what is the reality. The new generation, the digital generation is occupied with their insights, with their creativity, and they are also looking for a more brighter future. All in all, what I wanted to say is that why I'm familiar with it, because last 35 years working in Norway, I was collaborating and working with my master students. All the time these were youth, and they have a deep, the hope, and also they have also, because of all this media, there was a lot of mind wandering and frustration, and also they have a desire for fairness because they could compare what is going on in Norway, what is going on in some other country. So all in all, what happens through the digital era was that there was a high social mobilization, but institutions were still weak, And therefore, there was also, because in Nepal, this political working culture, as Suraj has already said, there has been overproduction of elites, and also there has been a policy corruptions, creating a kind of policy loopholes where they can only bring those people in the agency power and the different kind of creative activity where that they have some kind of connection to the political party and so on and so forth. And these youth wouldn't able to see their futures as an independent thinker, as a creative person, because there were in the government, as Norad might also note, that there has been so many unholy alliances, just for power and agency power. Any kind of ideology are just coming together only for the power relations and so on. And also there has been a deep corruption that I do not want to say here because that is a ground reality. All in all, in last many years, there has been because when I observed that one, when I was in Norway for last 38 years, I used to say that the political tipping point has reached. Now the tipping point here means that when a system reaches to a tipping point, anything can happen as an emergent phenomena and so on and so forth. And there was a total collapse of trust to the democratic institution, and also there was a possibility for an unimaginable destruction, what Professor Suraj was telling about, okay? And also this public institution. Therefore, before the change happened, already in the media and so on, because I have been also leading with the implementing conflict, peace and development studies program since 2007 there. I've been telling in the social media, look, the tipping point of Nepal has reached. And then we have been telling these kind of stories to different kind of forum here and there and so on and so forth. So, Genji's values and expectations dilemma were there, what Suraj was also mentioned here. They already have developed kind of grand reality was one, but their values and aspiration were more materialistic and so on because of the media exposure, degrading media exposure and so on. So there was a reality gap, intensified frustration and so on. On the other hand, in the political arena, that extractive economy and institutional capture was going on. And that gave a very poor and unacceptable working culture that these generation could witness in day-to-day basis and so on. Other thing, and because of that, they say that there is no hope in this country, nothing is working, and therefore there was a lot out migration, a kind of exodus of youth from Nepal to other countries, and many mass youth migration from every day. 2,000 youth were migrating from Nepal to the other country with the dream and so on. So now today almost 10 million Nepali diaspora are abroad in different form in the Arabian world, in Malaysia and so on. But their family and their loved ones in Nepal. In day-to-day basis they are communicating with them, right? And therefore this total ban in the social media at that point, they added up that transient kind of Gen Z protest that we have seen. But when government try to really, in a very hard way to, put down by start killing people, then as neuroscience of, the limbic brain, this Gen Z have, this limbic brain activation, the emotional brain and so on, and they couldn't able to resist and start coming more and more in a little more violent way to the street, and then they responded instinctively, really, and then there has been a lot of death that happens. So that protest, peaceful protest turned into unrest, and this is the example. This is the Supreme Court of Nepal. This is where all the cabinets and everybody sits there in the Singha Darbar. This is again Supreme Courts and so on and so forth. So as a collapse of trust and so on and so forth, this we can go on. But as I also do believe that maybe these Gen Z do not have a lack capacity for mass destruction like that we have seen. Other actors escalated the chaos or not, whether it is a external infiltration or destructive poise that has created by those old regime again, that still has to be seen. Because these do not look like innocent Gen Zs, These are the media, this where that has been there. This cannot be Genji with a gun and a kind of precision, killing and this and that and so on and so forth. So, for my perspective, what I have learned from all these things is that there is always hope and optimism, and therefore, we have to find, as Marit rightly say that, it's a complex system. Who are the actors? What is really going on? I didn't find that kind of scholarship, narrative and discourse until now, when, although I have already declared that I do not have an epistemic authority also to do that one, but we need to use more and more those kind of scholar and also engage them to understand that complexity beyond those politics and so on and so forth in future. Also, as a futuristic thinking, how these politicians are created in the arena. Because why every time, years after year, the corrupt politicians are coming in a power relationship and having agency power? Because the citizens are unaware of how the political decision takes place and so on. They don't have enough idea about the accountability of that person and so on and so forth. This simple-minded Nepali population that I know of in the hill and so on. So in future, we need to have a citizen supremacy with creating some kind of citizen tribunal from all the way to Palika level, ward level, all the way to, but how to do that? One has to work on that very seriously. And also there should be a constitutional reform, how to really prevent these unholy alliances and power relation, these power sharing deals that breeds the corruption and so on. All in all, we have to rebuild that trust and feeling and relationship in the democratic institution and also create a participatory governance and so on. At the same time, we need to create employment, empower youth, women, inclusion with a purpose, and so on and so on. But most importantly, myself, when I deeply contemplate and think, until and unless mindsets are changed, until and unless there is inner transformation. So I, myself personally, working around that one in the university arena, with the framework of awareness, connection, insight, purpose, and agency, and then all the purpose is that to create a future foundation for ethical governance. And in the university, we have created this course on inner transformation in the Tribhuvan University there, and when that was very successful there, and also in Kathmandu University, we are bringing that kind of course for inner transformation to youth in Aruna University in Sri Lanka and Royal University of Bhutan, and so on. So what I can do myself that can be done. And lately now, similar kind of course we are bringing to Africa and so on and so forth. And also now we are introducing in a very soft way, in a very science-based way into Norwegian students and so on. And also there is a need for this kind of inner transformation and resilience thinking for the security agency and so on. For that we have also created a book for the teachers and so on. All the story from the beginning of my journey as a Nepali boy and so on, and what I have learned from the best practices in the West, and also what is our life integration process, life process in how we have evolved in Nepal. I have written this book and also later on another books for teaching purpose. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this is time for change, this is time for renewal and so on. These are my personal reflections, and you can also make your reflection. I may be wrong because I'm also using my lens for being here. So thank you very much. The public here can rectify me, but I must say that for bringing back democracy to Nepal, this ideology-based kind of democracy, those outdated ideology, Marxism, Maoist, all those kind of other mass-based democracy like the Congress has been preaching and so on, they are not really, they are rather dividing politicians among themselves. So now that kind of we have to do some kind of basic correction there. It is not that ideology per se what really those rural poor, that population and everybody are interested in. What they are interested is in the transformative change in their life. Okay? So, in order to bring in a rapidly changing context again, in that given complex geopolitical and those kind of composition of people that we have to imagine, we have to find out if that kind of democracy which become context responsive, not context deficit. And therefore, in that process for creating narrative, creating discourses, we have to bring those critical thinkers, those scholars, those people who are everywhere in the diasporic community and so on, wholehearted, without any vested interest. And that I would think that would help, because now there is some kind of basic flaw on that assumption and so forth. Other thing that I have already said is that it is good to have a kind of aspirations, a good kind of democracy and so on. But if the people have agency power or not? How people can acquire that agency power to make those who are in the political arena more accountable? And there, to bring it back, democracy, a meaningful democracy, there should have been the accountability, and for that, these kind of tribunals where people over the ages, these political parties are promising very good thing, their manifestos are very wonderful, best in the even world, but they don't deliver anything. How to make that accountable? So that is how. And finally, the inner transformation is the way that I have already said in my thing. Thank you so much.
To follow up here, can you pinpoint what are the crucial actors? You have Gen Z, all of you have mentioned this with the parties, and you have the oldies in the parties. So where do you see the crucial actors in this process in the democracy?
Thank you, Marit, for a question. And then, there are different ways to how we can.
Human being can change. They can change other. And when the change happens, that will bring a heightened level of their both cognition and consciousness. So, but sometimes these kind of things are not overnight thing. Transformation takes quite a long time, but we have to start from somewhere. And as a scholars working in the university, I focus on that one because that is the pathway, that is one of the way to progressively realize our common worthy goal. I have seen many success stories on the younger generation. I have done also some kind of research, and before the intervention about transformative learning, and then also inner transformation intervention, and after that, there was a visible shift in both their consciousness and also cognition and so on. So that way, but it takes really a lot of time. For others, I must say that this is a very complex system, and I do not have a epistemic authority to really analyze each of them and link them together. Still I am thinking what will happen in different scenarios. Those people who are down there, those scholars has to really work very hard and also speak truth to the power. Now the outdated, obsolete, those ideology and those kind of, that way of doing politics will not work. I have a hope on the new generations with the fresh thinking, who can also synthesize the best practices from around the world. I would also say that where to blame this, whatever happens in our life journey, in our life processes. If you blame on something outside cause and bring a lot of idea about because of this, that, I could not able to grow, that itself that become a limiting belief, and that itself become a hindrance to progressively realize worthy goal. In my wisdom tradition, Lord Buddha used to say that attahi atano natho attahi atano gati. You are the 100% reason for your progress, and you are 100% reason for your downfall. One has to find pathway in a very skillful way. That way, if you train yourself, if you understand the reality and complexity, if you develop that kind of awareness and the connection to grow and create insights from diverse sources, having an open mental attitude to learn from everywhere and create purpose, and that way, how to acquire that agency power, everybody has equal potential to grow. Remember that there is no spare part in the universe. You are so unique and you can only grow in your way. Having said that, this was a great learning exercise. There is a ground reality there. There are something urgent, something important. But always, Nepali people, if you look at the history of Nepal since 10 years before I was born in 1950s and so on and so on and so forth, always there has been a cycle of turbulence and a kind of peaceful people. Nepali people also very good in forgetting the trauma and traumatic transition and work together, come together. That is our beauty. And therefore, this we have to do it. And one final note, people also touch upon some international relation issue and so on. There are so many soft power that we have in Nepal. We have to focus on those, Marit, you touch upon monarchy, okay? I was also, in my young age, thinking again, talking very many things against the monarchy and so on. But now, in a given reality, who is performing what? Sometime in your lifetime, you have to choose between diarrhea and cholera. There is no third option. And you have to also think that one, what are our soft power, Nepal, so that we coexist between this big giant. In that way, I see the relevance of monarchy also, like here in Norway, many other countries today. So much I would like to say because others also have to say. Thank you very much.